we can do Warp.
Oh, we're doing Warp. Okay, I was. And if we have more time after that, do Fish the
The
Pond.
thing is I don't know if I remember what to do, but we'll try our best.
I'll help you out. I know Warpless.
I basically so last summer we did actually no, it was actually this summer. This summer we did a community tournament of the original Link's Awakening Warpless on the Warpless category, which is the main category for the original Link's Awakening. I learned the category for the tournament, and didn't really enjoy the category. And because I did not enjoy the category, my goal was to get sub 50 and then quit. And I managed to reach that goal, so I decided not to spend any more time in the tournament other than doing the tournament races.
Yeah, I barely know Warpless, so this is gonna be fun.
I know Warpless because, similarly, I was also a part of that tournament. So, I guess some of the main differences between Link's Awakening DX and then regular Link's Awakening, the first is obviously the color. Everybody likes choosing their own kind of palette for
Black
it.
and white looks ugly, so I added some color into this.
What about the red and white that you get playing on console?
Oh boy. Okay, so yeah, similar thing. We have the grind rupees here.
Yeah.
It's random.
Also, one of the biggest differences that's actually very nice is that the menu is super fast. It doesn't have a fade in at all. It just like swipes up and down really quickly. That's really nice.
Okay, that one was better than last time. Alright, so
Oh,
this
yeah,
time we don't have to
actually,
get the seashell. So I do a different strat in this room. And by the way, this screen lags.
Oh, but there's one area that lags even more.
We will be seeing that. It's pretty bad.
Oh yeah, we're gonna be keeping Bow Wow. What's with the 11 rupees?
We duped.
Well, I mean, you had 10 rupees and then got another one afterwards.
Maybe he just likes having 11 rupees.
I think I did a rupee dupe.
Whatever.
Also,
Yeah, but the lagginess of the original Link's Awakening is a key component in the speedrun,
yes.
which we'll get to way later.
oh yeah,
when-
and sprite limits and stuff like that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later. But
Yeah, actually, I guess since we have some time with Walrus Skip, the original method for Walrus Skip that was theorized and done in the original, but not in DX, by Emurolas, basically required you to overflow the game's sprite limit with bombs, items, and arrows and powder. So that essentially you'd max out the sprite limit and then despawn the walrus.
You can also do a lot more tech skips in this version, so you just saw me skip the text for getting powder.
Oh yeah, this game, like, so one downside to not having the full menu fade in this version is you can't buffer anything. You can't buffer a save. You can't buffer, so that means you can't do Jesus jumps. You can't do lava swims. You can't buffer bomb triggers. You basically have to do everything perfectly, like with unbuffered. Which makes
yeah, so in some senses, it makes it a little bit of a harder category than some of the LADX categories, but on the other hand, one of the main rule differences in this game versus LADX is the notion of out of bounds. So in LADX, the out of bounds is pretty much defined as a tile going more than a tile away from like where you're normally supposed to be. But Link's Awakening does not have such restrictions. So
Yeah.
So the warpless part of the name essentially prevents you from doing any crazy doghouse glitches,
Yeah,
but
so
we will be going out of bounds a lot more.
yeah, and what's weird about this rule set as well is that you can't transition on an out of bounds tile, except for like one exception.
Yeah, but that one gets like that one gets debated on whether that's okay or not.
Yeah. Also,
Yeah, so the beginning of the run is sort of similar to LADX.
yeah, it's very similar. Now, actually, because we're doing any percent, that means that we're going to be keeping Bow Wow the entire run. But
Our
because,
lovely
that was-
friend.
but because
Yeah,
they're
y'all
saving
see that?
quit, we
That
don't
was
have to worry
really
about her
weird.
too much.
I just like knocked a guy and then he just didn't knock over.
Yeah,
Well-programmed game.
very well made game.
Yeah, one thing though is that having Bow Wow, it really isn't that bad in
Yeah, it's
this
only
category.
really in no save and quit.
Yeah, because the tricks that Bow Wow can hurt you with aren't done here because of the different out of bounds rule set. So
Oh, Rooster, skip.
And then
gotta love it.
we save and quit in this category, so we don't really take advantage of like of things like Piece of Power, and in the main category of Link's Awakening Deluxe, Bow Wow can screw you over getting Piece of Power sometimes.
Yep. Eating literally everything, except for the flowers in front of D2.
Or at least he takes his sweet time eating them.
Yes. Also, you're gonna see M-Chan, because pausing doesn't skip text, he's gonna be using save and quit or the map to skip text for bosses or dungeon entrances.
Yeah, so that was
So-
Wildorm. Just as difficult as Link's Awakening Deluxe.
Yeah, we're not really gonna have much to really explain for a little bit.
Yeah.
So
It's just that because this is any percent, we don't have to go out of our way to collect extra stuff like seashells or hearts.
yeah, I feel like we've explained a lot of this stuff in the other run that you did, but I think we can kind of start getting into the more in-depths of other stuff as well, I guess. Talking about the game. So I guess we can talk about the Switch version, I guess, since this is Link's Awakening. Well, first off, I see you're just gonna be sticking with the gold tunic.
Wonder what
Color
the-
palette.
Yeah. There are no other tunics in this game.
Yeah, and so one of the big differences between the Switch version and this is how little cutscenes there really are in this version. So while there are a lot more big skips in the remake, this version just has the least downtime in terms of cutscenes. So for instance, Sword and Shield enemies don't like knock back in this version. You can just hit them immediately and kill them.
Yeah.
The jump spin hits all enemies because there are no layers.
Yeah, because of how
in
little
this.
downtime there are in this game, it does make like when people are streaming PB attempts, it's like, especially for me, it makes it really hard to reach at.
Yeah, it's very much like once the run starts, everything starts going. And the run's a bit of a slog up until D3, but it's still a very, very action-packed run nonetheless, because you're always moving.
Man, 2 for 2 for that? My god. We didn't explain this earlier because we were explaining Flock Clip at the time, but Bow Wow can take as long as he wants on that.
Yeah, luckily they made Bow Wow's eating better in the remake, so he eats more. Also, M-Chan's going to deplete all of his powder here, because that's the only instance of power that he'll need, and that's for later, which we'll explain. He'll grab the mushroom.
Yeah, so another weird little thing in this version as opposed to LADX is that in some of the dungeons, if you want to do text skip on the treasure chest, you actually have to open up the save and quit menu late. I think it has to do with the lag or the crystal switches in the dungeon. It's something weird.
For those 2 rooms, it has to do with the crystal switches, and then there's another one in D8 later on.
I know in the original, if you open the save and quit menu on the same frame that you open the chest, it will still give you the text.
Yeah.
But that's also similar to another trick done in save and quit LADX called owl skip, where essentially if you get the tail key from the chest and then while opening the menu or opening save and quit menu on the same frame that you open the chest and then open the save and quit menu again, you can skip ever having to read the owl text. But of course in this category, because we are allowed to save and quit, we don't have to worry about that. Now M-Chan actually leaves D2 early here and leaves it for later because in the save and quit categories, it's faster to just save and quit after getting the level 1 bracelet and then going straight over to the next dungeon.
Yeah, and in addition, it's also because later on we'll be getting an item that makes the D2 boss really, really easy, as opposed to the LADX categories, where sometimes splitting the bracelet makes sense, but not for the same reason that splitting the bracelet in this game makes sense.
It's much bigger in this version. Now you're going to see M-Chan going into the forest, and that's because he's going to be getting the mushroom, which is going to be, it's technically required for Villa Skip, unless you want to do a frame perfect input, but it's very good. No Heart Piece of Shame, nice. So
this one's blessed now.
There we go.
So we're going to be doing a thing called a mushroom hover, which essentially if you open the save and quit menu while holding out the mushroom, you can just instantly get the hit trick we were talking about earlier. In LADX, you can pause buffer it with the menu, but because, as I mentioned earlier, you can't buffer in this game with the menu, you can't do that. So unless you want to do a frame perfect input to do Villa Skip, you almost are required to use the mushroom. But the mushroom has other applications outside of this, so it's like big applications outside of this, so it's also worth it. Also, another thing to mention is if you open the save and quit menu before the text occurs, if it is on the same frame that the text is going to occur, you can get a thing known as a white screen, and that unlocks the game. Yep, soft lock.
Or in your case, a slightly off blue screen of death, most likely.
You can save it in this version, but in LADX it's a straight up a soft lock.
Yeah. Also, that's like a quick Villa exit where if you transition while clipped into a wall into a solid surface, it just drops you down to the bottom of the. It's a zip essentially. It zips you down to the next available tile.
Yeah, you can do that trick in LADX. The reason that M-Chan didn't do it in his run is because he had to go into that back cave area in order to get a seashell.
Yeah. So D3 is exactly the same. Nothing special. He's going to be doing exactly what he did. He's going to try to get a piece of power.
So we've been seeing acorns dropping, and acorns drop when you kill 12 enemies without getting hits. And what's very complicated about that is that if an acorn and a piece of power are on the same kill count, oh god, then Guardian Acorn overrides. I'm gonna get rid of the Guardian Acorn because I do not need it.
Oh yes, and you actually want the piece of power for the boss. It's very important that you get it.
And the reason I got rid of it is because piece of power does not spawn while you have Guardian Acorn.
And vice versa. So the Guardian Acorn will not spawn throughout the duration of the
That was really close to soft locking.
Yeah, that was a really delayed super jump. You're also very far from the edge of the wall there in the corner.
He still made it though.
I was surprised that you actually were able to get the super jump at all. Because you were very close. Yeah, this jump is...
Yeah, this jump, so,
Alright, fine.
as we mentioned, the menu is... The menu in this game is different than LEDX, so you can't buffer inputs out of a menu. And there's this little thing you do in LEDX. In that menu, you change to Feather and Sword, and because you can buffer the input out of the menu, you can make that jump easily.
You actually have to time it in this one.
Hey,
yeah, it's a weird timing.
Hey, but I mean, at least you can just jump immediately out of your dash. Unlike the remake, where you lag a ton after starting your dash for some reason.
Yeah.
Because Grezzo.
Yeah, I do not like how laggy the remake is in a lot of regards. So we're going to be doing a similar thing to the last fight against good old Gigazol.
Okay, so there's a trick called instrument cutscene skip. I'm gonna do it first, and then we'll try to explain it. No,
Oh, boy.
okay. So there's like 7 opportunities for me to do this. So and I missed it. You only get 1 try per instrument. Essentially, what happens is you have between 1 or 2 frames to pause the moment you land on the instrument, and then buffer, save, and quit, and leave the dungeon. And then the game gives you the instrument, and it saves 15 seconds every time you do it, but then you also lose 15 seconds whenever you don't get it. So it's very, very, very high risk, high reward trick.
Yeah, ICS, there is a way to do ICS in LADX, but
Technically.
it requires both the ocarina and the mushroom, and it's basic. Like, you can't buffer it, and it's frame perfect, so it's not worth it. And it's not faster either, based on the current route.
Yeah, and you saw that one room that M-Chan went through that had a lot of lag. Yeah, this game is laggy.
Yeah, there's gonna be one particular area that's... so this is one instance where Bow Wow kinda sucks, because essentially M-Chan wants to have as little health as possible going into this next sequence, because he's going to save and quit and enter this house so that it sets his load point. So after Walrus Skip, instead of going into a cave to get his menu back, he's going to instead die.
Yeah, and this Walrus Skip, it's a little bit annoying because, once again, unlike LADX, you can't buffer things out of your menu.
You have to set it up differently, and it's kind of weird.
Yeah, it's just similar enough to the LADX version that it trips you up.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. We made it.
Yeah.
Earlier I just did a save and quit because you can soft lock if you do it wrong.
Yeah, also your position during the Walrus cutscene looked a bit concerning, but you got it anyways. So yeah, with Walrus Skip, if you have Bow Wow, or just if you don't have Marin
I can't believe I died.
if you
Oh no.
if you just don't have Marin in general, it waits for Marin to walk off the side. And so if you have Bow Wow, because Bow Wow never leaves your side, the game soft locks if you're still on the screen. But if you don't have Bow Wow, the game is still waiting for the bunny text, so you don't have access to your buttons or your menu, but you can still. But if you die or enter a cave, you're fine. Also, nice sand.
The sand spoke to us, but
I got a little worried, but we're fine.
You gave an offering of some arrows that spoke to you, but that's it.
It was happy to see you twice in one day.
So here's one of the demonstrations about how Out of Bounds works differently in this game versus LADX. So, like normal, we're gonna put the key in the keyhole.
Oh, yes,
But
don't
you can-
forget to put the key in the keyhole before doing
Oh,
this. or
this
else
one's
you're
hard.
soft locked.
In this version, it's harder to forget, just because of how the route works.
Actually, I think, are you just completely locked out of finishing the game if you after you go through here? I think you are like hard locked, and you have to do a new file.
you are if you don't, you're locked. But essentially what you saw there is that M-Chan did a super jump and started walking on the ceiling there.
Yeah.
So once again, in Link's Awakening, that is 100% allowed. In LADX, not so much.
Yeah, also in that one instance there, it's
Oh my
really
God.
like that's the only instance that you're technically allowed to walk out of bounds, do a screen transition while out of bounds, kind of, maybe. It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, you could technically just drop down there and then make the rest of the way over, but whatever.
Yeah, also, that's like...
You can jump around that block that I bombed, but it's really dumb to do, so I decide not to do it.
Yeah, and the shack jump in that cave is nice. Also, cue ball in D4. Wow!
Alright, so because I took a lot of damage, I'm gonna get this fairy that he drops.
Wait, so when do we return to D4, or are we...
We do it right now.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah, because
Yeah.
you do Never mind. I forgot that you can't do the Jesus jump to transition. You have to go this way. Yeah, I forgot. So, don't you have to get ICS here? Or wait, no, you don't need it. You don't.
Yes, because
Yeah,
there.
no, 100% you don't.
In 100%, you have to get it because if you get ICS, some cutscenes, some things don't happen unless you actually officially get the instrument, if that's what you call it, and the ghost is one of them.
Oh yeah, and Bow Wow is one in Dungeon 1, which is why we don't do ICS in Dungeon 1.
Yeah. If you ICS in Dungeon 1, you soft lock the game.
And we don't worry about splitting D4 in this or doing ICS here because we're going to be staying in the vertical half of Covalent anyways, so it doesn't matter. So it doesn't matter. So as soon as we're going to be getting the level 2 bracelet through a really weird trick in D8, which we'll explain.
Okay, that's 1 out of 6 out of 5 more that we have to do.
Very nice. ICS is just so cool. I wish it was in the original. Or not in the original.
Well, it is in the original.
In LADX.
There you go.
What I mean. I'm so used to calling it the original, like LADX the original, because I'm always talking in the context of the remake.
Yeah, so M-Chan, like we said, he has to make sure that he doesn't go too far south. But since we're headed... Yeah, it's not hard to not go too far south because we're heading up the mountain.
Yeah, I think in this game it's the bottom half. In the remake, it's the if you go below the top 3 squares, you'll encounter the ghost.
Yeah, so I think like in this game you can go talk to Tracy if you wanted to, but in the remake you can't.
Yeah.
Alright, dumb trick, and we got it.
Amazing, wonderful.
Oh boy.
So
Thank you for getting that hospital skip.
The reason I'm very impartial to this is because I'm very known for not doing that at all. And yeah.
Terrible, terrible.
Also, what's nice about
So this
both
is
runs
Rooster
here
Skip
is that
we're about to
we're just
pull
gonna
off.
keep running past Papal, and he's gonna starve.
Poor Paul. But yeah, here is Rooster Skip Skip. So once again, out of bounds rules are different in LADX compared to this game. So this is allowed.
Yeah, as long as you don't transition left, you're good. Because that is a system transition.
It's actually funny. There's been a few moments where people in the where newer runners in the community would be like, "Hey, I found this trick. Doesn't this save time and it's easier than Rooster Skip?"
Yeah, but it doesn't count in LADX because since you jump on sort of that top ledge area and you can't get there normally, it's more than one tile away, then yeah, you're not allowed to actually jump on there.
What's funny is that wasn't banned for a while, but Blano Skip, or that was banned from the beginning, but Blano Skip wasn't. And it's the same exact situation. But you know.
I guess people weren't thinking about Blano.
Yeah. Anyways, coming up here is another instance of the mushroom hover. Because we don't have the hook shot, we're gonna have to do almost exactly what we did for Villa Skip, and we're just gonna do a little zip.
Man, I don't even remember what my menus are in this category.
It's fine. This is casual run.
It's a bonus.
Very casual.
Alright, so now that I bow wow. Okay. Oh, we did. Okay, never mind.
Yeah, so Bow Wow is super ravenous, and he eats everything, including cutscenes, because cutscenes in this game are essentially just sprites. So Bow Wow can eat the sprites of the cutscene and prevent it from happening. Yeah. So in the categories where you actually have Bow Wow, you want him to eat the sprites of D7 and D6.
And opening the cutscene there takes quite a while.
Yeah. So we're gonna be D7's almost exactly the same.
Except for not having to get the level 2 shield. Yeah. So we just go like directly to destroying the pillars as opposed to going around, get the level 2 shield, and then destroy the pillars.
Unfortunately, there's no eagle skip like in No Stew, No System Transitions or Wrong Warps in LIDX, where you can do this really weird shield bump, super jump stuff to skip the boss.
Yeah, if you want to see a really cool category in LADX that uses a lot of out-of-bounds things, go look up No Stew.
Yeah,
it is a fantastic run to watch.
Yeah, it's essentially, it allows out-of-bounds, but it's not like the game, well, no, the game's busted, but the game's not all busted. You see, you're always in the playing field, but you can do stuff like super swims. Also, we are required to do Goomba Surf in this.
Yeah, so you don't... We have not gone anywhere near D5 at this point. Yeah. So you have to do this trick, because even if you did the other method that you can do in LADX of P-hat jumps, you still need the hookshot at that point, so you must do Goomba Surf there.
So, DX is different from the original release because it is more broken. Way more broken. And also has some differences in menu and stuff like that we explained earlier.
Yeah,
also,
so this is the bomb method that we talked about. You can't use the hookshot method, even though you do save and quit in this version. It's weird.
Yeah.
Also, this is another weird trick. There we go. Nice.
Yeah, ooh, nice.
I don't think I've ever seen that trick before.
So that only works in Japanese 1.0 of LA, where you just transition like on the very top of the screen. It's really easy. All you do is press up.
Yeah. Also, we never explained this, but if you save and quit in midair, you can take control of Link immediately, and that is abused for the current no save and quit route, where you do Jesus jumps to get to D6 before D4.
Okay, so this is probably the worst part, like one of two of the worst parts of the run.
Oh, this is probably one of the hardest.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say the hardest jump in the run. Or no,
not
the
there's a harder one.
Yeah, not this one, but the later one.
The hook shot cave.
And my D-pad is really stiff, so it makes that trick even harder for me.
Yeah, so here's Marin here that we're skipping. Again. So coming down here, once again, we don't have the hook shot, and you're supposed to get over this really giant gap, but you can't because hook shot. But you can use the mushroom. Essentially, there's that little ledge in the lower left-hand corner, and using the mushroom, you can land right on the edge of that wall, and then from there, you can use Pegasus boots to jump to get over to the left side. But it is a very annoying trick.
Yeah, it is the hardest, probably the hardest trick in the run. It's really tough. You can do this in the original, but because we are doing our best to get to Dungeon 8 as soon as possible, for the Magic Rod, which is basically what breaks this game.
There we go.
Nice.
Okay, so fortunately, I still have enough hearts to do flame skip, so that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the thing with that jump is there is actually a slightly better method of doing that jump where you can land on that part of the wall where you're facing up instead of down, and then use the shield or use the shovel to sort of run in place, and then you can do a running jump. The method that M-Chan did is faster because you don't have to like menu and get the shovel and everything, but you have to do, I think it's a frame perfect input of both jumping and going up at the same time.
Oh yeah, so now it's time for again, frog song skip. This time we're actually not getting the frog song at all.
But
And,
once again, you can go through this head, this lovely golden head.
So basically, M-Chan's goal here is just rush getting the magic rod for a trick that we're gonna be doing called magic rod despawning. Essentially, if you open the menu and use the magic.
Okay.
You good there, M-Chan?
Almost got my routes mixed up.
Oh yeah, well I mean you have to go there anyways. By basically opening the menu and using the magic rod near the same frame, you can transition, and it basically overloads the sprite limit and despawns everything in the room. And in certain rooms, like for instance a room that has a door or a chest that spawns with the requirement of the magic rod of all the enemies being dead, you can't, it'll just spawn immediately because there's no enemies there. And what we can do is that we can use that in boss rooms to despawn bosses, and that's why we stopped. That's why we aren't going into D5 or D6 or whatever, because we don't want to fight the bosses. And Blano skip right there, because out of bounds rule set.
Yep.
And so that'll be useful. So basically that's why we split D2, and that's why we're fine with doing dungeons 4 and 7, because we can't despawn them.
Go to cue ball. Go to cue ball.
Oh man. Okay, so I'm like I said, I haven't ran this category in a while, so that really did throw me off there.
Yeah, and then there's, speaking of cue ball, we're gonna be doing an interesting trick.
Nice. That is called Burles.
Ooh.
Yeah, so essentially if you brush against these ice guys, then they say "Brr, it's so cold," and it's really annoying. But here is the instance of despawning. So cue ball is supposed to be in this room, but oh wait, no he's not.
Yeah, he's gone. So now...
And another interesting thing is that in all of these dungeons, there are a bunch of rooms you normally aren't supposed to get into that are just sort of default rooms so that the map is a square in memory. And it so happens that in Dungeon 8, that default room corresponds to a room that is...
Yes, I am. Okay.
Yeah. And corresponds to a room that looks kind of like a room in D7, but that treasure chest in there has the level 2 bracelet.
Yeah, for some reason.
For some bizarre, very convenient reason. So now since we have the level 2 bracelet, now we don't have to worry about the ghosts.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and also ignore that being considered a warp or transitioning out of bounds. Don't worry about it. That does
get debated a lot.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, people consider it not being like a warp or anything because that room actually is there in the map. It's just that normally you're not really supposed to get into that area because it's sort of this weird default extra room.
Also,
But
speaking of like transitioning out of bounds, kind of similar to the idea of what we did to get to D4, I was wondering, why don't we do in order to skip the hookshot pit or whatever, why don't we do the quote-unquote walking on ceilings glitch, where we do kind of like a super jump to go out of bounds in a similar way to the shack jump going to D4 when it's the same kind of transition. Just wondering.
sorry, which transition are you talking about?
So on the way to D8, there's this trick that you can do as soon as you go underground, where you can set it up where you can, well, or you can just super jump. But essentially, you can just get out of bounds that way on the bottom of the screen, and then just transition right, and then you're basically right at the cave to the boulders. Unless that's just because it's a transition to a not existent area.
Yeah, I think that might be it.
Okay, so it's a system transition then.
So
Also, we can just kind of
Magic
destroy
Rod
this guy with the Magic
destroys
Rod.
Armless Knights.
Yeah, as you can see, this is stuff that you're not supposed to have the Magic Rod for, but you can use it anyways. So also, this is Lag Maze.
1 FPS maze, as Xander likes to call it.
So you can actually despawn these armresses, and once you despawn the armresses with the magic rod, the lag goes away, but it's kind of debatable if it's worth doing it or not.
Also,
I screen transition like very far up because because I have not beaten Dungeon 2 yet, the game will still give me the text box of that I can't lift up anything.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's not tied to the bracelet.
Yeah, it's really weird. Also, one side effect of now that we have the magic rod to despawn stuff is that we're going to be despawning bosses, meaning that our heart container count is not going to go up at all. Whatever our container count is right now of 7 will stay 7.
Yeah, so this is a very as a result, this category is very difficult.
Yeah, also that's a Magic Rod despawn, so instead of relying on Bow Wow, we just Magic Rod despawn.
Yeah, because once again, all the cutscenes are just sprites.
Oh yeah, also if you do Magic Rod despawn here, you don't have to worry about the tiles. Which is really nice.
Yeah, so the reason that we rush D8 so early is just because of the power of the magic rod. It just makes all these dungeons super fast.
Yeah, and one thing to specify, like, rooms, like for instance boss room, say the cue ball room, or say the facade room, the despawn only works in that room, in that one instance. When, say, after you get the triangle and come back, the facade will still be there. It's just that it despawns it for the time being. So it's not like a permanent despawn.
Yeah, but thankfully, for most cases, we don't have to worry about that because we never go back into that area. Oh, and here's one really interesting use of the despawn. So there's normally one of those stone beak areas, but we despawn that beak, so that just skips a whole bunch of the dungeon too.
Shoutouts to no horse heads.
No horse heads.
And as you can see, all of them just despawning. Like,
I'm gonna
we
be
literally
saving
haven't done
Gravity
any
Stairs
of the
to slap
dungeons.
more hearts later on.
That is perfectly acceptable.
Yeah. This is a marathon run after all, an impromptu marathon run. So, first boss skip. Or, oh, yeah, there we go. And no ICS.
So,
But
this sounds bizarre, but it is frame rule whether you have 2 frames or 1 frame to do these ICS, and yeah.
They can be tricky.
So, basically the tip is, get it on the 2nd frame.
yeah, and you can technically manip it with sword slashes, but you won't know which one you're on.
Yeah, so we just burned away that owl.
Just
Bye, Owl.
despawn everything. That's warpless. Despawn everything. Rush DA as soon as possible.
And
despawn.
also the 100% category of this game has the same rule set as any percent, and so you can do all these despawns, but do not do it in a boss fight because you need their heart containers.
Luckily, you can still fight them, kind of. Also, in 100% for this game, there is no source requirement required for it, so as long as you follow the basic rule set of Warpless, you can duplicate the genie and duplicate the heart container to skip getting 4 heart pieces. So pick and choose your 4 least favorite ones, or, you know, the 4
Follow
that's
the route.
slowest. So we're not gonna even bother getting the hook shot. There's no point.
Yeah, we've
No use
at
for
this
it.
point we've skipped all the
Okay,
areas where
what
you
am I
actually
doing
did the
next?
hook shot.
You're getting that.
Get the nightmare key.
Okay.
Yeah, so because we have the magic rod, we can skip the D5 boss that normally requires the magic rod. So that would have been the last moment to that
is
the
also
hook shot would have been
important.
useful.
That you despawn Master Stalfos, because otherwise you're gonna be using up quite a bit of bombs and arrows.
Oh yeah, and you want those arrows because unlike 100%, you're going to have not very many arrows, and you're not going to be having as many pickups in this. Like, even less pickups than in LADX. So you
First
really
try,
want to...
easy every time.
Nice. That's dumb jump. It's dumb. There's another way you can do it through shovel buffering, which is slightly slower, but more consistent.
Yeah,
As you
so
can see, we're just doing LADX 100% here.
yeah. So, like Astro said, the rooms that you despawn are not permanently despawned. So even though M-Chan already went through these rooms and despawned it, he has to despawn them again.
The enemies respawn anyway, even when you save and quit, so...
Right.
But Master Salvos does not 100% despawn.
Okay, so there's another dumb jump. I hate this jump so much.
Yeah, so...
because you don't have a hook shot. Ooh.
Okay,
you have
there we
to-
go.
Yeah, so this is just another dumb jump.
Yeah, I forgot. I was like, oh, what's so dumb about this jump? I'm like, oh, but you don't have the hook shot.
Yeah, so there is another way of getting across that gap.
What? Dude, how did that not work?
Oh no.
Oh no.
So I think with that, M-Chan just has D2 left, where really...
I have D8 and D2 left.
Oh, D8, right, you split D8.
Oh yeah.
D8 and D2, and both of those are going to be very quick because they're pretty much both all the way completed. It just needs to go to the boss. And this is the reason that we split D2 at the beginning, because Genie, even with the quick kill, it's just faster to kill him with the magic rod, just despawn him.
Yeah.
It's interesting because, like, even in the save and quit version of any percent in Link's Awakening Deluxe, there is a really interesting way of doing a Genie quicker kill in that category.
Also,
I pick up that fairy right there. I mean, I have a lot of hearts, but I would rather like to be in full HP.
Yeah, so that's one of the last heart pickups that you can get. And there's one more in D2 that you can get, but other than that, that's it.
yeah, it's so interesting seeing Warpless, because I remember running this game when Warpless didn't exist and it was no wrong warp out of bounds.
Okay, there
Back
we go.
And-
when people were like, who cares? So it's really interesting, kind of seeing Warpless how they just kind of embrace the brokenness of the category. Also, there's no way to accidentally not do the magic rod despawn just because you'll know when you get it because the menu will slowly go down because of the lag.
And there's another ICS.
Nice.
Yeah, and also you can hear it too.
Yeah.
You can hear all like
So
the
if you're
little
doing
flames
runs
spawn.
like without sound, then you can tell if you got it just from seeing how slow the menu opens up.
Yeah. Also, is that 3 ICSs?
I don't.
3 or 4.
3 or 4?
Probably 3 then.
Yeah, because I remember you got the... I can't remember which ICS you got.
4,
You got
7,
some of them.
and
4,
8.
7. 4, okay, yeah, 4, 7, and 8. Then yeah.
You got one more try left.
This room is still terrible. Okay, so it is technically faster to use bombs and arrows against these guys, but I'm gonna save my arrows.
Oh yeah. Also, Pole's voice can actually die to something that isn't bomb related or arrow related, for that matter.
Yeah, it's interesting because I don't think you would interact with Pole's voice at all before D8 because the Pole's voices they're in D6 and they're in D2, so
Also some cool boots strats there. Now, what
Nope,
genie?
too
There's
early.
no genie.
Alright, that's fine. 3 out of 4 is alright.
Yeah, there's no genie there. So yeah, now all that M-Chan has to do is go to the nightmare fight. Now, big questions here. Are you going to turn in the mushroom to get the powder or not?
No.
Or you're just gonna go for the
quick kill.
original blob quick kill setup manip. The manips are actually different for the blob between LA and DX. They're slightly different, but they're roughly the same though. As soon as you get to the Aghanim fight.
yeah, so the thing is essentially that the blob, normally you have to kill him with powder. As you saw in M-Chan's LADX run, you don't actually need to use powder. There are methods of killing him just with the sword and being positioned in the right place. But in LADX, especially 100%, if you messed it up, then it's fine because you have lots of powder and you can just kill the blob normally. But in this version of the game, you don't have powder because you have the mushroom.
Yeah,
you
and
have
you
to get
can
that
use
quick
your
kill,
sword.
otherwise you have to do some really bad.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's very precise doing the sword charge, and it's very like you need to know exactly where the blob's going to jump at, and it's not worth going for. You might as well just save and quit and retry. And then in LADX, there's a mushroom kill method, but it doesn't work because you need the menu for it.
Yeah, it's really annoying that in LADX we don't have the mushroom, but there's a strat you can use the mushroom to kill the blob. And in this game we do have the mushroom, but you can't use that strategy.
Yeah. Well, time for the final boss again, which, aside from the setup for the blob manip, it's basically, that's the run. We can see if M-Chan can get the good setup for the Moldorm quick kill coming up soon. Very nice.
That is one dead blob. Yeah, thankfully the Aga manip, it's the same as in LADX.
Yep.
Alright, that's one blue ball.
Oh no, did you
I think it was a
not get it
pixel off.
perfectly right?
I think it was supposed to be 1 pixel over, but it wasn't.
Yeah, the manip can be weird. 2 blue balls.
Okay, that's
Alright.
fine.
2 blue balls isn't that bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's better than,
It is important that you don't get too many
3.
blue balls because you only have 7 hearts to work with.
Oh yeah. And there's no strat like in, the remake where you just don't have to worry about getting hit by blue balls.
Okay, so unfortunately, 2 heart Deathle is really scary.
Oh yeah, because Deathle does full heart of damage no matter what. Luckily, Mchan has a lot of arrows to work with here. Yeah, I don't know why his head only does a half a heart, but the arms or wings or whatever do a full heart.
Okay,
They really,
had to take that safe.
they really had to amp the enemy damage. Also, there we go.
GG's.
GG's.
Mchan doing an extra run for us.
Doing warpless right afterwards, just without even planning it. Doing warpless.
I got a 50
Thank you,
27, which I guess is alright for not running this for a while.
Yeah, I mean, it's also a pretty good marathon run as well. You actually did a pretty good job, actually.
Alright,
considering you
so
haven't run it.
I think we should head on out so that our next runner can step on up.
Yeah, so thanks to everyone for having me. And, yeah, I guess my work is done here.
Yeah, you've seen 2 out of 3 of the Link's Awakening games. You want to see the 3rd one, then
Who wants
just
to
look
see
at Twitch.
glitchless?
There's a lot
I'm
of
kidding.
people running the remake.
Hey, who wants me to run glitchless? I'm kidding. This is Completithon, 100%. But we have an any percent run in it.
Oh, that's true. We're bad.
Complete the
Alright.
series. We completed it. We can complete the series.
There you go.
Do I have a marathon for you? Alright, well, thank you for having me, M-Chan, for commentary.
No problem.
Yeah, tons of fun. But now we must give the stage over to what's next? Need for Speed, looks like. Alright, bye everyone.
Alright, see ya.